He had the size of a giant, the jab of a technician, and the heart of a street fighter. Fast hands for a big man. Brutal combinations. And when that right hand landed, it didn't just end rounds, it ended careers. They said he was too undisciplined, too wild, too unpredictable. But in his prime, Bowe was a problem no one could solve. Not even Evander Holyfield. He rose fast, hit hard, and lived larger. World titles, million-dollar nights, and luxury that matched his frame. Rolls Royces, silk suits, and mansions big enough to hold his legacy. So, before we step back into the chaos, the brilliance, and the brawls that define Big Daddy, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. Because this isn't just a story about a champion. It's about a man who had it all and fought like he never wanted to let it go. Born on August 10th, 1967, Riddick Lamont Bowe was never just another fighter. He was a storm no one saw coming. A towering 6 feet 5 inches, with the hands a monster and the heart of a child raised too fast. The 12th of 13 children, he grew up surrounded by struggle, loss, and heartbreak. His brother died young. His sister was murdered in cold blood. In a world where pain turns men cold, Bowe learned to bury his wounds until the gloves went on. Inside the ring, he became something else entirely. Not just a puncher, not just a technician. He was a man chasing more than titles, chasing greatness, chasing peace, chasing something he could never quite name. He shared a 6th grade classroom with Mike Tyson, 2 boys from Brooklyn walking paths only legends take. But where Tyson exploded, Bowe simmered, waiting for his moment. From Olympic silver in Seoul to the peak of boxing's mountaintop, he rose fast and hard. He became undisputed heavyweight champion, beat legends, and carved his name in a history with fists that ended fights before they even began. But at the height of it all, things began to fall apart. Refused fights, faded hunger, brutal wars that left scars deeper than any belt could cover. His fall wasn't just from a spotlight, it was from himself. He earned over $80 million trading punches, lived like a king, fought like a god. Today, he's worth less than $30,000. So, what happened to the man they once called Big Daddy? This is the story of a champion too big, too real, and too human for the world to hold on to. Long before the lights, the belts, or the millions, Bowe walked into the Bed-Stuy Boxing Association gym with nothing but raw hunger. His friends teased him, calling him Don King because of his wild hair, but he wasn't chasing fame. He was chasing a dream bigger than his block, bigger than Brooklyn. He wanted to be like Mark Breland, the Olympic gold medalist who had come from the very same streets. That inspiration turned into obsession, and that obsession turned into dominance. At just 17, Bowe knocked out James Smith in 4 seconds, a violent introduction that let the boxing world know he was coming. By 1985, he was the #1 light heavyweight in the U.S., a 4-time New York Golden Glove champion, and climbing weight classes like a man being chased by fate. At the 1988 Seoul Olympics, Bowe stood 1 win away from gold. He dominated the first round against a young British fighter named Lennox Lewis. His punches landed cleaner, heavier, but the refs saw ghosts. Headbutts that never happened, 8 counts no one understood. Just like that, gold slipped away. He walked away with silver, but what was taken from him that day would fuel a fire that burned for years. Eddie Futch, trainer of legends, saw something in the heartbroken Olympian. And so, in 1989, Bowe turned pro. It was the beginning of something brutal and beautiful. He fought 13 times in his first year. Knockouts came quick. Lionel Butler fell. Pinklon Thomas quit. Burt Cooper didn't survive 2 rounds. He moved like a heavyweight, but hit like a freight train. He wasn't just beating opponents, he was breaking them. Then came the madness. Elijah Tillery taunted him after the bell, and Bowe responded with punches that sparked an all-out brawl. His trainer, Rock Newman, leapt into the chaos, dragging Tillery over the ropes. It wasn't just a fight anymore, it was a warning. Bowe was becoming something boxing hadn't seen in years. Dangerous, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. By 1992, after dispatching South African contender Pierre Coetzer in 7 brutal rounds, Bowe was ready. The target was clear: Evander Holyfield, the undisputed heavyweight king, a machine built on discipline and pressure. What happened that November night would become legend. Bowe and Holyfield waged war over 12 unforgettable rounds. The 10th round was pure violence. 2 champions trading haymakers in the center of the ring, refusing to back down. And when it ended, Bowe had done it. He dropped Holyfield in the 11th, sealed the decision, and stood as the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. At just 25 years old, he was at the top of the mountain. He had it all: speed, size, power, charisma. The heavyweight division belonged to him. But as fast as he climbed, the cracks were already forming. The first came in the form of an old ghost, Lennox Lewis. Now undefeated, Lewis had become Bowe's mandatory challenger. But instead of meeting him in the ring, Bowe's camp demanded a laughable 90-10 per split. When Lewis declined, Bowe made history. Not in the ring, but at a press conference where he tossed the WBC belt into a trash can. He chose pride over legacy, and the heavyweight crown was shattered. Still, he fought on. Michael Dokes was flattened in one round. Jesse Ferguson, another quick knockout. But something was off. When he stepped into the ring for the Holyfield rematch in 1993, he looked softer, heavier. The fire seemed dimmer. Then the chaos hit, literally. Holyfield edged out a majority decision, handing Bowe his first and only professional loss. From there, things grew strange. In 1994, Bowe hit Buster Mathis Jr. while he was down. A no contest followed. Before facing Larry Donald, Bowe punched him at the press conference. The pressure was boiling over. The crown was gone, and he was starting to come apart. He briefly regained a piece of it in 1995, knocking out Herbie Hyde for the WBO title. Then came the trilogy-ending fight with Holyfield, his most complete performance. That night, he became the first man to knock out Evander Holyfield. It should have been the beginning of a comeback. Instead, it was the last great moment of his career. Later that year, he stepped into the ring against Polish contender Andrew Golota. Out of shape and weighing a career-high 252 pounds, he looked sluggish. Golota stunned everyone, outboxing him, until he repeatedly hit Bowe with low blows. The fight was stopped in disqualification. A riot broke out. Chairs flew. Fans and fighters brawled in the aisles. Bowe had won, but no one celebrated. The rematch was more of the same. Golota disqualified again. More madness, more damage. But this time, Bowe didn't recover. At 29, he walked away, unbeaten, except for one decision loss. A record of 43-1. But even then, he couldn't stay gone. In 1997, he stunned everyone. Not with a comeback fight, but by joining the U.S. Marine Corps Reserve. The same man who once stood atop the boxing world was now being yelled at by drill sergeants. He quit after 11 days. The next decade saw legal trouble, failed comebacks, and financial disaster. Despite earning over $80 million during his career, poor decisions, lawsuits, and bad management left him nearly broke. His life outside the ring wasn't a victory parade, it was a slow unraveling. In the early 90s, he married his longtime love, Judy. Together, they had 5 children, building what looked like the perfect family behind closed doors. But beneath the surface, pressure was mounting. Fame, fortune, and the brutal nature of boxing were taking their toll. As his career declined, so did the stability at home. Bowe's behavior grew unpredictable. In a desperate, bizarre episode that made national headlines, he kidnapped his own wife and kids. A cry for something even he couldn't explain. Many believe he was already suffering from brain trauma, the unseen cost of war inside the ropes. Punch by punch, fight by fight, something in him was slipping. The courts showed mercy. His family, not so much. Today, the former champ lives in near obscurity, no longer married, rarely seen, and far from the spotlight he once owned. He walks with the weight of everything he gained and lost. Once upon a time, Riddick Bowe lived like royalty. Tucked away in the quiet suburbs of Fort Washington, Maryland, his mansion was more than just a home. It was a monument to dominance. For bedrooms, nearly 8,000 square feet, high ceilings, luxury finishes, and the aura of a man who'd conquered the world. It was nicknamed the Fight Palace, and for good reason. Inside those walls, you could feel the echoes of triumph. Back then, Bowe didn't just win fights, he lived like a winner. Cadillacs, custom Mercedes, fur coats for his wife, designer suits for himself. He walked into press conferences draped in wealth, showing the world what a heavyweight king was supposed to look like. But today, the cars are gone. The fame faded. His net worth? A fraction of what it once was. So how did the man who had it all end up with almost nothing? The answer lies in the aftermath, where the fight outside the ring proved far more punishing. After stepping away from the ring, Riddick Bowe wasn't chasing glory anymore. He was chasing something far more elusive: peace. Somewhere in him, the heart of a giver still beat strong. After defeating Holyfield, he saw a news report. Millions of dollars worth of medicine stranded, unable to reach Somali refugees due to a lack of funding for transportation. Without hesitation, he covered the cost and personally flew into the war-torn region. Not for cameras, not for PR, but to see the mission through. He hugged orphans, shook hands with Marines, and stood in the heart of chaos, offering something that money couldn't buy: presence. Before you go, don't miss out on exclusive perks. Click the link in the description to become a channel member and enjoy awesome benefits, like suggesting future video topics, getting early access to new content 48 hours before anyone else, and much more. Your support means the world and helps us keep bringing you the stories you love. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more amazing content. And while you're here, why not check out our deep dive into Floyd Mayweather's video? Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.